Love. Some would say it took a backseat when the pandemic forced us apart. As a family-run and proudly Canadian-owned company, Charm Diamond Centers saw the need to bring us together with tales of love and created the Canadian Love Map podcast. Since then, we've shared hundreds of real, uplifting stories that prove love conquers all. So thank you for listening. We couldn't do it without you. And remember, love starts here. What the world needs now is love. More love.
Stars literally aligned.
He's always been the one.
There's someone out there for everyone.
I'm Nancy Regan, your host on the Canadian Love Map. We are on a journey to uncover and share love stories of all kinds.
He's never forgotten to bring me flowers.
We're hoping we're going to give a little good news to this world.
Even in these dark times, the life continues to go on.
It's all about compassion, devotion, adventure, and of course, love.
Everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs love.
This is the Canadian Love Map.
Well, love is the most important thing.
When you said yes, and I said, can you see yourself being the executive director? And he said yes. And I was like, oh my God, this has all been worth it. For the rest of my life, that everything has been worth it because of you.
This wouldn't happen without Jess. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that. And just the commitment, the work, and the sacrifices make is very honorable. And I think it really takes someone who's really aware of themselves and someone who really is fully understanding of themselves to do this job. And Jessie's someone who does that and a role model for me. And I want to be a person like that.
Today's love story belongs to Jessie and Kolade. Friends, colleagues, magic makers. They are part of a phenomenal social enterprise in Halifax that is focused on empowering inner city youth. It's all about growth, from the garden where the program took root to salsa, salad dressings, and scholarships. These changemakers made a national impact a decade ago on the show Dragon's Den, and their success since has mirrored the organization's fabulous name, Hope Blooms. This is the Canadian Love Map. Jessie and Kolade, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
I have no idea where to start with you two because this it's really, to me, so amazing what you are creating and what is blossoming from your whole project. But I guess, as usual, I like to try to rewind and start at the beginning. And I'd love to hear from both of you. Kolade, let's start with you. What was your childhood like? Tell me about you.
Pretty normal childhood. I'm actually, my family is an immigrant family from Nigeria. So I moved here when I was 7. And kind of miraculously, the year after, I joined Hope Blooms. Yeah, it was, So as soon as I got to Canada, joined Hope Blooms. Wasn't really doing much, I would say, outside of school. I was really kind of school, Hope Blooms family. That was kind of my routine. I would say I wasn't really one of the kids that stood out, I would say. I was always on my phone. Yeah.
Do you remember when you first heard about Hope Blooms?
Oh, yeah.
What was that like? Were you curious? Were you,
Actually, I heard it through one of my friends. Actually, her name is Karen. She's actually one of the original Hope Bloom members as well. She's one of the reasons why I signed up for Hope Blooms. We were friends kind of prior. And through that kind of friendship, she was like, oh, come to Hope Blooms. I'm going there. And at first I was like, what is Hope Blooms? What is it? And then she's like, oh, it's like a garden. And of course I'm like, okay, ooh, garden. Oh, don't want to spend my free time garden. And then she obviously kept at me with that, come. And I'd be like, okay, I'll come. And then one day they Hope was at a barbecue at the time, and she's like, we're having a barbecue. It's a community barbecue. Let's come, just see how it is. You don't have to do nothing. So I just was like, sure, I'll come see how it is. And then from there, I remember I was in line to get a hot dog. I was in line to get a hot dog, and she's like, you might as well sign up. You seem to be having a lot of fun. And I was like, why not? It seems pretty fun. And from there, I've stuck with it ever since. And then kind of found a lot of my good friends to this day, and found my second family.
Okay, Jessie, let's go to your childhood. I sound like a therapist now, don't I? Tell me about you.
Oh, about me. Well, I'm from Cape Breton Island.
Yeehaw.
Yep.
And I always talk about Cape Breton with the youth. I even have had them listening to fiddle music.
Yeah.
I have always loved working with children. And with my career as a dietitian, it actually was my third career because I lived in Toronto and Montreal, and I was with the airlines for years and went back to school to be a dietitian. And but in my long vision, I really wanted to work with children. I was at the QE2 and I took a position at the North End Community Health Center. And in my evenings and that, I used to volunteer throughout the community. You know, I started doing some grocery store tours, and it was my first kind of experience with seeing racism so blatantly, because we were in the grocery store and being followed around by a security guard. And I said something the first time, but the next month when I went back and it was the same thing, I asked to speak to the manager, and the children were, 9 to 12. One of them actually is at Hope Blooms to this day, Craig. He was with me at the grocery store. And they were like, can we just leave? We're really used to this and just don't want to make a fuss. And that really broke my heart. And I kind of went with this motto that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Mm-hmm. Like what I see in the community in North End is beauty and brilliance don't have a postal code. It's everywhere. And I absolutely fell in love with the community, and I fell in love with the children. And I just was, everybody has to see this. It's amazing, the community. And so we kind of set out with, I did a little poster up, after my work hours, I did a little poster up, and it had a big thing. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I went into St. Pat's Alexandra School, which was open at the time, and 6 children signed up with me to start a little garden and a little social movement. We were going to make something with what we grew and do good in the community. And, those youth are still, around today. Christiana's in her last year at Dal. And then the second year is when Kolade, came on board. And when I, saw Kolade and was, getting to know him a little bit, I used to always say to him, you're a natural little leader. He was 8 years old and 9 years old.
Wow.
He was so
prophetic,
compassionate with people. He listened really well, and he was a problem solver. We had nothing, people were going around thinking I was in a midlife crisis in a garden, on my weekends and after work, and what are you doing there? And, they kind of couldn't see the vision of children leading the way,
Were there other friends or associates of yours who did see, yes, this is a brilliant idea, and did they sort of get behind you? Did you have partnerships, or were you feeling like you were really alone?
When I first started it, I kind of wasn't, I had no expectation. And so for me, I wasn't paying attention as to whether people were accepting what I was saying or not. I was really driven by this kind of empowered service. It was like I have commitment to children, and I didn't feel like I was alone in it. I felt like we were in partnership the whole time. So sometimes, we feel like with children that we know better and, they have to listen to us, but there's so much wisdom and their imaginations are still intact, and, they're not afraid to be vulnerable, and they're willing to take risks, and it's okay to fail. So they've taught me so much. And so my concentration was really on that.
I love that. So from the very beginning, was there a sense of that kind of blooming or blossoming where it just started to grow, like the garden you were tending?
Yeah, so from the very beginning, like people always say to me, I bet you didn't think it was going to get this big. And for me, it was not like a project, it was like a movement that if the children could see that who they are is brilliant and they're beautiful and they can create change in this world no matter how young they are, and to see themselves that way and to feel that they are enough inside and that what they have inside is abundance and they can give from that place of generosity back to the community. That was the vision, and that was what I really believed could change, the way that you see yourself and how the world shows up for you, how you're looking at it and how it reacts, because we're always in a reciprocal state. How we look at things is how sometimes they show up for us. And so it doesn't matter the age for that. And so I kind of had that focus. And so to me, there wasn't any restriction on like, oh, we're just going to stay in a garden. I felt like it was about creating change, that children were creating change, and that I was a steward in how that was going to unfold. But there was a big desire in me that the youth have their education. And so when we created a product, I knew right away that it has to go to scholarships.
What were the first products you made?
Salsa.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Actually, when the first garden, Jessie, you got donated some tomato plants, and that was planted in the first garden. So then the youth harvested the tomato plants, and this time when Jessie was back at the health center, and so she had I think I was there in the second year when this was happening too. Like we had probably 12 of us in this pretty much health center kitchen.
Yeah.
So how making salsa with blenders and tomatoes. So this is already pretty messy and it was messy. So
but
that
fun?
was, oh yeah, of course it was fun. It was a great experience because it's we're blending tomatoes, making salsa, and just the whole entrepreneur and creativeness of it was definitely the stuff that we really, really enjoyed. And then on top of that, we were actually making products that we were going to sell and then give those proceeds back. So that was really magical. And the name was a Salsa Mania.
Salsa Mania.
Yeah.
I love it.
And we walked around the community because said, okay, we got to interview organizations and you decide where you want to contribute your money to. And we did that. And they said, we'd like to give our money to Adsum House. And I said, so what percentage do you want to give? You want to keep some for yourself and give some back? And this is when I knew I was all in. You know what they said? Can we give it all away?
Oh, that's
beautiful. To Adsum House. And they were...
Which is a shelter for homeless women and children.
Yes. And so I thought, here, children have no money themselves, and they want to do good. And so I thought that's such empowerment. And we sold all of our salsa in a few days. And the health center was so wonderful. With us, there was tomatoes in every corner of the kitchen and jars of salsa everywhere. And it was a hot mess.
Oh, but it sounds like a joyful
We had so
mess.
much fun.
We had fun, though. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
And we raised almost $500 and gave the whole thing to Adsum House. And the children were jumping up and down. We were so excited. And then I knew that this is life-changing. And so, but we thought we can never ever make salsa again.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I can't even eat salsa to this day. It was so much work. Next.
That's so interesting that even in those very early days of the program, already entrepreneurship, philanthropy, mentorship, leadership were all being woven into it.
Mm-hmm. Right from day one.
Okay, so many people know Hope Blooms because of your Dragon's Den performance, appearance, success. I want to talk about how that came about. And I'm probably fast forwarding a little bit, but that's something that's on the radar for a lot of people. And it was such a spectacular moment. Also a spectacular show. I'm guessing it's one of the most popular shows ever. How did it come about? And tell me about the experience.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh wow. So kind of like rewind a little bit. So after the Salsa Mania, Jessie and Jessie's daughter Tash was actually the I call her a genius because she actually designed all the recipes for the dressing, and like was very very I guess intentional when it came around what was the best product we could do at that time. And of course, dressing was what we came up with. So from there, we were selling the dressing at the Seaport Market in Halifax. So we were there like every Saturday, and we would like bring like 10, 12 cases and like sell out. And then doing this over like years on years, like a few years, like you build a lot of traction, you build a lot of business skills, you build a good business at this point. So then a lot of people were like, hey, like you guys should submit to Dragon's Den. And at that time we didn't. None of us. Jessie didn't even own a TV. Like, yeah, I didn't know what Dragon's Den was. Like, I'm like, what is this? So Jessie, of course, was like, I think you should take it on from here. Like,
oh no, so many people kept saying it, and because like we had just so many wild stories from the market. Like when we first start going, I still remember one of the customers coming up and saying, to Kolade and them, well, this is a nice little fundraiser. They were like 8 years old, and they were like, oh, excuse me, we're entrepreneurs, So they were in it. Like and so I thought, well, everybody's saying Dragon's Den. I looked at what it was, and I wrote a pitch, and the name of the pitch was, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And the story, of Hope Blooms. And I just didn't pay any attention until we received a call that they wanted us to audition at the Halifax Shopping Center.
Yeah.
So we kind of put a pitch together, and it was very rough, but it was sort of like telling who, we were. And then I said, now you're going to be doing it. I'm not going to be on it. Each of you are going to tell your story, because it's about the message. It had never, ever had anything to do with asking for a specific amount of money for something. It was about telling their story. That's why we went. That's why I wrote the pitch. It was all about that.
Yeah.
But it was also brilliant to have the kids do the pitch, because it embodied what the program is about. It's so youth-driven. Kolade, how old were you when you were on the show?
12 years old on the show. I was 12 years old. And we were all like between 14 and like 11, I think, at the time. So like we're all like just junior high teenagers. And like, yeah, I remember like when Jessie wrote the pitch and we found out we had to audition in Halifax, we were like, okay, like we took it super serious. Like, we're like, this is our time to shine, and this is our time to, like, once again, like, send this message to the world that, like, beauty and brilliance doesn't have a postal code. And we did rehearsals and rehearsals and rehearsals, and we didn't have like months. We had like, I think roughly like a few, it was like a month and a half maybe if we were to do the first audition. So we were like, okay, we're gonna kill this, and we all went in there. I remember like waking up and going to the Halifax Shopping Center, like it's like 6 o'clock in the morning. There's a photo actually. We're all on the couch, like we all look like tired, like sleepy, like heads all down, like, but we're all just like locked in. We're waiting for like, okay, we're gonna go in this presentation. We had a little huddle, do a little prayer, and like it was kind of like meant to be. Yeah.
And did you watch the show a bit before you went
of
up,
course,
so that you got a sense of what the
100%.
Personalities were like?
Of course, you have to do your research before you go into any scenario. So we definitely did that. We like, that's when, before we started like rehearsing, we did some like, okay, what have people done? What are like any other youth have been on there? What have they done? And then like, how can we kind of like Frankenstein, like you said, a performance or a performance that can tell the story clearly. Yeah.
What do you remember from the trip?
Oh my God, what don't I not remember? I remember even like the most fun part was the hotel. I don't know why. I think because like, you know, you ever go on a trip with like a bunch of your friends?
Oh yeah.
It was like that, and like we're all going for like, it's like almost like one of like those sporting trips where like you all go on a trip to like go play like a game, but it's like you have like a few extra days. I remember like the hotels being the most fun, just like after like doing the shoot. Like it was super. We were all like super excited. I think I can speak for everybody. I feel like we were all very like empowered and accomplished within ourselves, because once again, we just went up to go present in front of like a bunch of multimillionaires, and like at the time we didn't like understand like the how big that was. Even to this day, I'm still like, whoa, like we actually did that at like 12 years old. That's kind of crazy. Like if I actually understood it more, I feel like I would have panicked 100%. But I think I'm happy. Like it was going on like, oh, la di da da. But also very like very serious about, okay, like we're youth, but we know what we're doing as youth. So like it was a blur, but like one of those blurs that will stick with you forever.
It makes sense to me now to know that you did a lot of prep ahead of time, because to watch the clip now, it's amazing the wherewithal you guys had standing there, and you were just so, as you said, you seemed so empowered.
Yeah.
What was it like when you started to get such a positive reaction? What was it like when Arlene Dickinson cried?
It was surreal. I think that's the right word, surreal. Like kind of like, because once again, like you said, like the prep was very intentional. Like doing the farmers market, I seen that as prep for Dragon's Den, because we are literally like pitching ourselves, and that allowed us to really tweak our story, tweak how we want to like get our message through. So kind of going on there with Arlene Dickinson and with the Dragon's Den like team and kind of like pitching to them, that was kind of like, oh, like just like the final boss. So we really have to really like. Once again, like we were super intentional, and like it was like surreal just seeing how someone we didn't know prior to this connect and get the message, but also very reassuring at the same time. Because like, wow, like we really do have something amazing here. Like we're just like 6-7 youth from Halifax, Nova Scotia, in Toronto right now pitching to a bunch of. So like I feel like that was definitely once again surreal in the sense that we're like, whoa, we can do this. We did this.
Yeah, you give me chills just talking about it. Jessie, you were backstage. What was that experience like?
Well, I was crying from the time they went into the studio, and I just felt like we were on this mission together. And, the mission was this message, across Canada, that no matter your age, you look at so much stigmas there and racism and everything that was out there. But if people, just could see, these children like that, no matter how young you are, no matter the color of your skin, no matter the environment you're living in, that you can change the world, and your world starts within yourself. And so we had practiced like every single day, and everybody had a specialty part. So that's why you would never see anybody speaking over anybody else. So we had an accountant, we had a historian, we had the visionary. Everybody had a part. Wow. We had the social determinants of health person, Bokar, and everybody had a part. And so that's why when you see them, saying their name at first, that was deliberate. So they'd be grounded in themselves. And so as soon as we got into the studio, they said, well, see you, Jessie. You have to go in the back room. And I felt like I was leaving with my babies, But I knew as soon as I saw the monitor, when they each said their names, and we are Hope Blooms, I knew they had it. I knew how just in the power in which they were saying their names that they got this. And just a final little point that we're talking about this, that it's actually 10 years in 2 weeks that it aired. November 13th, 2013.
Yeah. Oh 10 years.
Gosh,
yeah, it's 10-year anniversary.
That's probably the week we're going to be posting.
Oh, wow. Perfect timing.
I got chills again.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. No kidding.
That's crazy. What?
I told you this is.
Meant to be.
Yeah, meant to be is right. That's beautiful. It occurs to me that the choice of the name Hope Blooms, hope is the word that Barack Obama ran with when he was running politically. Was there a tie-in there, or was that a coincidence?
Oh, no, that the word actually came about in a very unusual way. I was a dietitian at the health center, and we were all invited to be part of this talk. Gabriel Maté was in Halifax. And so I went to listen to him, and there was a little bit of question and answer at the end. And somebody said, well, what do you think about what's hopeful for you? And he had said at the time, I don't really believe in hope. I've seen so much, and, it gives people, a false sense that, things get better. But I realize that's in that point in time where he was at.
He's an expert in trauma and addictions, I
Yes.
should say.
And it just stuck with me that I understand where he's coming from. But to say that in front of so many people, that sometimes that's all they have to hold on to. And, it was a talk around mental health and addiction. So it just really stuck with me. And I thought, well, what if there was something tangible that you can feel hopeful in? Like, what if, and then we were in the garden growing, and I just thought, well, what if something can actually kind of bloom in front of you? What if there's something you can do with your own mind and hands and, that you can create with that hope is coming alive? And that's where the name just came from. Then I just thought, oh, hope blooms. And I called my brother in the morning. He's, a big businessman in Toronto. And I remember phoning him. It was like 8 a.m. I was like, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. I know what the name has to be. He said, what now? Because I was always that person with these wild ideas. And I said, it's Hope Blooms. He said, that's a terrible name. I said, why? He said, okay, just listen to this. What do Nike, Heinz, Kraft, what do they all have in common? I said, I don't know. He said, it's a one name.
Yeah.
He said, that Hope Blooms, people are not going to remember that. It's not catchy. And I said, well, I don't care if it's catchy or anything. I just feel that that's how it has to be. People have to see that they can create hope, that hope can bloom in front of them. And he's like, okay, you're setting yourself up. He said to fall. So I just
this is your podcast. I told you so, brother. We couldn't share the great stories that we do here on the Canadian Love Map podcast without the amazing support of Charm Diamond Centers. They are Canada's largest family-owned jeweler, and they're proud to be putting love on the map. The folks at Charm Diamond Centers are thrilled to be a part of your love story. So visit charmdiamondcenters.com or one of your local stores. Love starts here. Back to Dragon's Den for a moment. Tell us, for those who don't know, what the result of that experience was.
So the results was that we got 4 out of 5 dragons to give us $10,000, and our original ask was $10,000 for 5% royalties, and they felt really, really comfortable to like also be like, no, actually we don't want to take the 5% royalties, we just want to give the $10,000 just like that. So we did not expect this, did not at all. And once this happened, of course, we were in Toronto, and this was shot and like all done like months before it aired. I'll say at least like 5 to 6 months before it aired.
Oh, you had to keep it secret?
Exactly.
Till April 26th.
Yes.
We shot on April 26th and then had to keep it quiet until November 13th.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing for you, Jessie, but for the kids
I
at
know.
that age and to have that kind of amazing positive experience and then have to put a lid on it?
Yeah, I remember we had to sign like NDAs and stuff, of course, because you know how it is. And it was funny because everyone knew we were going to shoot this show before we went. So everyone's like, oh, like I remember like my school was like, oh, like we have some students in the school who are gonna be on CBC Dragons Den. Let's give them a round of applause and saying names. So everyone's like, oh wow, good job. And then we go on and come back. Everyone's like, oh, like what happened? Like, what happened? So we're sitting there like, like we didn't get it. And then the people was like, what? What do you mean you didn't get it? You did all that for that and didn't get it? Like, wow, that's such a bummer. And meanwhile, we're like, oh, we know we got it times 4. And we can't say nothing to nobody until this airs. Wow. And like, it's like, we would meet once a week and kind of just like let it all out as a group. As a group. Cause we're like, because even like our parents, we couldn't tell our parents, school teachers, like, I did fizzle away pretty quickly, like a month after. Everyone's like, okay, everyone stopped asking, because everyone's like, oh, like, okay, like, it was a bummer, like, they didn't get it. And then November 13th.
What was the watch party like? Were you all together with parents?
Yeah, so like Kolade said, every week we would meet and we'd literally scream and jump up and down for a half an hour and then go back. Okay.
Top
Kept it
secret.
quiet.
It was
Top
so
secret.
funny. I wish
Yeah.
I had footage.
I know, right?
And then when it came around that it was getting closer to November, and the CBC National wanted to cover it, and it started, this buzz, and we thought, okay, we need to have our huge party. And we started inviting everybody, and then all of a sudden, hundreds of people wanted to come. And the day of, the big truck came from CBC with the satellite dishes, and then a lot of media started coming, and because nobody knew, we didn't say a word.
Yeah.
And I think it just created this, like, what really happened.
Yeah.
And so when it aired, the place exploded
Yeah, it was
in
crazy.
like tears and laughter and jumping. We were all crying,
Yeah,
and we
we were
knew
crying.
what
Yeah,
was happening. But we were all crying, bawling and crying, and people were hugging us, and, family members, like, just, crying so hard, with joy and
pride.
and
I'm
pride.
sure.
It was
Yeah.
just that one of those life moments you'll never forget to me witness with them, that seeing so many people so happy
Yeah.
for them and so proud of them. And everywhere we would go, they were like, yeah, Kolade's my cousin. And I'm like, I knew him since he was 7 years old when he first came here. And, doing that with all of the youth, like everybody in the community just like wrapped their hearts around, all of the children. Everybody did.
Yeah, it's one thing for you to be in that situation when, there's lots of adrenaline, as you say, the cameras are swirling around, whatever. But to then be able to sit and watch yourself, and also to watch other people's reactions.
And things like, we'd never seen the episode until like it aired. So we didn't know how it looked. Oh, how everything kind of like played. And we know how it played out, but we didn't know how they would lay it out, like for them, like their production, right? So like,
With so much drama.
Exactly,
too,
right? So like, yeah.
Can you look back at that, Kolade, and feel how that moment when you were watching the show and you talk about the reaction is sort of ingrained in your sense of confidence as an adult now?
Oh my, yeah, 100%. I definitely look back. That's one, like a staking point definitely for me in like what I wanted to do and what I'm doing right now. It was definitely like I think I said earlier, it was that entry, like that door opening, that kind of like, oh wow, like I can actually do this. I can do anything I put my mind to. So I always look back. I revert to that moment a lot, for moments where I'm unsure about things. Yeah.
So how transformative was that win, and in how many different ways? Can you even say?
Yeah. Well, I think we got our message across.
Yeah.
I think so.
That was a big one. Yeah.
And then that was in November. And then the summer, Jim Treliving took his wife, Sandy, and they both came to the garden and visited us. And Arlene has stayed in contact with us.
She's been a great supporter.
She's been a really great support. We came out with a book. I just really wanted to have the youth stories compiled before they all, went off on their own. And so Mamadou, one of our alumni who was on Dragon's Den, compiled, spent a summer and compiled stories and poetry and photographs, and reached out to Arlene and asked if she'd write the foreword, and she said, yes, of course, I'm gonna. She's been a big supporter this whole time. She came and did a fundraiser for us and cried on stage again with them.
Stop. Well, it's amazing because what they're looking for on that show is, an opportunity where they see a business or an organization in this case that really has the possibility of growing and amplifying. And boy, you have done that just in such an amazing way. So I need you, I don't really know, as I said at the beginning, where to start, but give us an idea of how it has bloomed and how many different facets now exist.
Yeah, so the day after it aired, the building trades, mainland building trades in Buildright, Nova Scotia, Brad Smith, Trent Soho called and said, we want to build that greenhouse you asked for in Dragon's Den. And I have to start there because I'm sure I've said to Brad so many times, I bet you wish that I would have lost your number by now. So we thought, okay, well, we have all these dreams. We want to be like an experiential campus for all across the country and the world of, innovation in the inner city and, led by youth. And so I said, with the greenhouse, will you take some of the youth on to be mentored and designing it? And he will say to this day, he had no idea what he was getting into because we are environmental stewards also. So we wanted to be solar powered, and Kolade's design won. And they got Fowler Bald and Mitchell involved, and it ended up winning the Lieutenant Governor's Award for Excellence in Architecture that year. It's the whole greenhouse is made with sawdust and mixed in with concrete and, all this stuff. So It started with that, and then we started, expanding with the business, and then, we all of a sudden quadrupled with the number of youth, and we expanded the gardens. And then we said, well, we want to have our own space, like a kitchen for community and other youth and community members to start their own social enterprises. And collectively, like, we can really contribute to community development and education and, disrupt the cycle of poverty in our own, small way, but contribute to that.
But you needed a hub at this point.
We needed a hub. Yeah. And that's when, I reached out to Brad Smith and Trent again and said, well, we want to have, our dream is to be next to our gardens. And they're like, well, they're not building new buildings anymore. The city aren't building, they're not interested. You can't have a community center or whatever. And I said, well, what if we don't call it any of that? Because really what we're doing is all around food. And so it became the Global Kitchen for Social Change.
It's really significant to me that it's so youth-driven. Kolade, you're an amazing example. Now you are in a serious position of leadership.
Yeah.
You've been to university,
and
you're back in the program full on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Oh, it was a no-brainer. Like, me and Jessie, like, once again, like, I purposely interned at Hope Blooms every single year I was in university, and that was just because of my curiosity. I looked at Hope Blooms as like my playground. I feel like in real time I was able to do a lot of change in real time. There wasn't like a year wait. It wasn't like a 3-year wait. It was more like, okay, we want to do something. How do we make it happen? And I like that environment. I like being in those spaces. So I was like, okay, I want to work here. So I did that every single year. And then when I was graduating, I was going to school for business and marketing. Jessie's like, do you want to work here? I was like, of course. Like, I was hoping you were going to ask me to work here. Like, I was interested here, right? So like, it was, for me, it felt like an opportunity. I'm able to be in a position where I can help other kids like me, help other people who don't look like me, or even just be an example of something that can be bigger than me. And I think that alone was something that it was a bigger picture. And I put it up to God. Like, it's something that divine kind of put into me. And I was presented this opportunity. And it kind of felt ignorant to turn it away. Right, because I'm a big person. I'm like, no, like, I'm a big risk taker and kind of see where things go. I feel like risk taking is great. That's where innovation comes from. So I was like, well, if I have this opportunity to kind of grow, build just not myself, a wonderful organization, contribute to a bigger impact. If we can get like 30 more kids to university, that's huge. Like, and be able to say that, I can literally die tomorrow and be like, I feel like a good person because I was able to contribute in that sense. So like, that was very much that helped me make a decision. And that's something I wanted to kind of keep with working at Hope Blooms and pass it on to the next youth. Because if I can think like this, I can pass it on to 5 more people, and they can pass it on to 5 more people. In 3 more folds, that's a lot of people think like that, right? There's a lot of youth making an impact. So like, that's kind of like the goal, and I would love to see that. And then I feel like I'll be very, very satisfied. Yeah.
And you are literally the future of this program, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So is it known that there's a succession plan in process?
Yeah, so I kind of never told people from the beginning, but it was always my intention or dream that one of those youth would be the executive director of Hope Blooms. So I always felt that I was like, I am not Hope Blooms. I am like a steward. But the dream was one of these youth, if that could happen, then I just know this, it's all like, it's meant to be, and that, I've been in service, for this to happen. And one day before Kolade graduated, and like I had been thinking about this for years, but none of the youth ever mentioned anything to me. I didn't want to put any pressure on them. And when Kolade, before he was graduating, said, I can kind of see myself here. And I still remember being in the office, and I turned around in my chair and said, well, how much can you see yourself here? I remember. How much can you see yourself here? Like, can you see yourself, leading Hope Bloom someday? And he said yes. And it's like there was a moment in my life before that conversation, and a moment like my life changed from then on. Like it's so true. I remember that conversation, and it was just like when you said yes, and I said, can you see yourself being the executive director? Yeah. And he said yes. And I was like, oh my God, this has all been worth it. Aww. But, I can say, Kolade, that like, I feel like for the rest of my life that everything has been worth it because of you.
Oh, it can't be only me. The whole team.
I mean, we have a great, amazing team, and the fact that I get, to work with my daughter, who I absolutely love and adore, to infinity and beyond. Kolade, you being the leader at Hope Blooms, it just is.
It's everything. An honor. When you asked me, I remember so originally Jessie asked me when I was 18. She brought it up. She's like, so what do you think about that? And I was like, I'm like, I don't. I'm like, you have to come back to me on this one. Yeah, come back to me on this one. No, literally, I was like, come back to me on this one. I was like,
how old are you now?
I'm 23.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then over the years, I've really understand the mission very, very well for myself and for the role I have to play. And once I understood that, it makes it so much easier, because it's like, I just know how to show up, and I know how to. I'm learning. I don't want to say I know. I'm learning how to kind of really just how do we be a leader in the sense where like you can help other people become leaders themselves. I think that's really the magic, right? Is with Hope Bloom specifically, right? It's like a machine that makes leaders, literally. Like, yes. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how do you, right? So like, and like I've been able to understand that, and like being in it helps so much. So like, I was like, I really want to be a part of this journey. It's a journey. And like I want to be a part of this journey with Jess and like what she's built and like what the team is doing. Like I was a no-brainer. Like I find it hard to work somewhere else, because I'm like, damn, like
yeah, exactly.
Kids come in every day. Like where else can you do that? Like where can kids just come in and chill with you and while you work, right? So like yeah.
And I'm sure you feel there's a real I don't know. I don't want to say safety net, but there's such a lot of beautiful support and love behind you. I know you have a board. Who are really supportive, and also I'm sure the broader community. Do you feel that all the time, supported as you move into this executive director?
All the time, especially from the seniors, which is the best part, because they have so much wisdom, and like they really support me the most, I would say. Like they're really, really, like they make me feel like damn, I can do this. Like I don't know, like seriously, like when the support is great, and they always like make sure like. Even like I don't ask, but they always like reassure me, like, no, you got this, like you did great. And like, cause sometimes you can get in your head like, oh, did I do good enough? Like, don't you know, like you did great. Like, so I'm like, okay, like, and like that's rare. I feel like very, very rare to have, and like I really want to cherish that.
Okay, speaking of cherishing, I want to wrap up by talking about feelings. Basically, I would love you, Kolade, to tell me what it is about Jess.
Yeah.
That you just love, and that speak from your heart, but also speak on behalf of all of the other kids. What is it about Jessie that has made such a difference in your lives?
Oh, I know the answer to this. First of all, she's a fantastic leader. I think one of the best leaders I've ever come in contact. I look at her as a mentor. I don't think I tell her this. She doesn't believe that. I like, for her, that's the reason why I come back to, like, you're like my mentor. And like, fantastic leader, so compassionate, and honestly a genius. Like, once again, this wouldn't happen without Jess. I feel like a lot of people like don't realize that, and like just the commitment, the work, and like the sacrifices make is very honorable. And like, you're like you're actually kind of like a perfect human being. Like, low-key, like someone's be like, yo, like if you were to like, someone who's good, like actually gave back and like still like finds time for themselves and finds time to spend time with your family. And like, I think it really takes someone who's really like aware of themselves and someone who really is like fully like understanding of themselves to do this job. And Jessie is someone who does that and like a role model for me. And I want to be a person like that. So like, that's 100% how I told you this, but I'll tell you this again. Yeah, I feel about you. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I love that answer.
And I've known Jessie like over a decade, like 15 years. So like, yeah.
Yeah. I always say that she's one of the most loved people in the province, for sure. Probably the country.
Yeah. Probably North America.
And
well, I think that's like a little too much.
Okay, Jessie, let's turn the tables. And you can tell me what you love and respect about Kolade, but I'd also like you to broaden it to all the kids who are in the program.
Wow. Kolade, from the moment, you were so little, I love that you have such compassion, that you have your heart and your mind open in the midst of so much in front of you that you could easily, and history would show you that it should be closed. Your mind should be closed, your heart should be closed, you should armor up, and you've done just the opposite. And to me, that takes such courage, and it takes such vision in yourself, and a leap of faith, and a trust. It's so big. And so it's one of the things that I just have such reverence for you, is your heart and your mind is open. You're not afraid to fall. We've fell together many times, literally and physically. And you absolutely love the youth, and you are a dreamer and a doer. You're a dreamer and a doer.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That means a lot.
I absolutely, my heart is with you 100%. And everything you say to me, I feel is a mirror back to you.
Aww.
Yeah, I love you so much.
You too,
I always say my son,
right.
Shoto to his mom.
There's so much love in this little room right now. I feel like I'm swimming in it. It's tangible. Okay, what about the youth in general? Let me ask you that, because I'm sure some of them will listen, and I'd love for you to talk about what they mean to you as a community, as a group.
Well, just one thing I like, but the one thing that sometimes, it's so important for us is that we're in it for the long haul. We're not in it for 8 weeks or 10 weeks or 12 weeks. We're in it through the ups and downs, ins and outs, messy, good, bad, everything. We're invested long term. We never look the other way or you're 18 now, we'll have a nice life. You have to discontinue the relationship if you want, because we're not going anywhere. We're in it. And so when you're in that long term, you don't look for short term, this is a success. No, it's not. You appreciate the journey, you appreciate the process, and it keeps me my heart totally open with them all the time. We know we have lots of bumps in the road. There's lots of struggles, but we're always with them. You're phenomenal. We see you, and you deserve to show up for yourself, in a very loving way, in an empowered way. And we see you, we see you. Well, what you're doing right now, this kind of behavior, but, we're with you.
Yeah.
We're not going anywhere.
Well, I just want to say thank you to both of you for being here today.
Thank you. This
but
is
also for the amazing work you're doing in the world and how you're showing up.
Well, we say the same to you, Nancy. We thank you for all the work you're doing in the world.
I'm just a student of yours.
No, it's always reciprocal.
Yes, it's beautiful. Thank you so much. Hope is blooming.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Canadian Love Map. This podcast is presented and made possible by Charm Diamond Centers. It's hosted by me, Nancy Regan, and is produced and distributed by Podstarter. We love sharing love stories of all kinds, and that could include yours. So do you or someone you know have an uplifting tale to tell? Reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram using @CanadianLoveMap or email producer@podstarter.io. We'll be back next week with another love story to add to the map.